Hey guys, it's Coach Goodrich again with part two of my 8th grade American History Unit 10 series, which deals with the 20s, the Great Depression, and the beginnings of the New Deal that's leading us into, and eventually leading us into World War II, which will start with Unit 11. So if you have not watched part one, you can be a little bit lost, so you might want to go back and watch that. But we're getting into some of now that the Great Depression has officially started, getting into more of the abstract causes that kind of lead it to spreading around the world. America at this point, number one economy in the world, most important in terms of its imports and exports to anywhere else. If something happens in the United States to the United States economy, it's going to be felt anywhere. That's going to be during the modern times right now, but it started way back during this point. And one of the big ways that it spread around the world was the Hawley-Smoot tariff, a tax that raised the prices on foreign imports and exports. The idea behind it was that it would help to motivate people here to start making their own finished goods or more finished goods that they could sell, just Americans selling to Americans. However, there's so much food that's being produced by the farmers because of the war and everything that's leading up to it. There's so many finished goods that are already here that businesses cannot sell overseas, and now it's going to be too expensive to try and do that because the tax raises the prices so high. The crisis in the U.S. reaches a global scale, and everyone in the United States is affected. Everyone around the world is affected because they're not getting finished products from the United States like they're used to. This leads everywhere around the world. Great Britain, France, Germany, Russia, China to be affected by this. With the stock crash and bank failures, consumer spending plunges because they don't have that money. As a result, U.S. businesses cut production, begin to lay off workers. With high unemployment, consumer spending continues to fall because they don't have any jobs, they don't have any money. Unemployment rate rises up from a low of 3% in the late 20s to 25%, which is the highest that it has ever been in recorded U.S. history, which is 1/4 of people who are eligible to work are not able to find jobs. Severe poverty in both cities and farms, obviously. Although unemployment was high, some jobs remained, but hours or wages are going to be cut significantly. Impact smaller meals. You got water instead of milk, potatoes instead of meat. Translates into pop culture, news, music, famous songs such as Brother Can You Spare a Dime. It's going to be reflected in the writings of the day, into the movies and radio shows of the day. It's a depression. It's people being really, really upset, people being very sad for noticeable reasons. Government politicians have different ideas of how to cure the depression. The conservative approach, conservative usually equals Republican in terms of political party, leave it alone and it will improve. The laissez-faire, which is French for hands off, hands free. The liberal approach, which usually feeds into the Democratic or Democrat Party, increase spending on public works to create jobs, roads, bridges, tax corporations and the wealthy to provide social welfare, government assistance for citizens in need. However, the depression continues to worsen. It became clear that no policy was not the answer, so somebody's got to do something. You can't just have this being divided along partisan lines. Someone's got to take the lead. Herbert Hoover, who was a Republican president, believed the federal government should not give aid to the needy, felt his job was to let the economy fix itself, had faith in localism, the idea that problems are solved best at the local and state governmental level, and favored the idea of rugged individualism, so people could better themselves through their own efforts, which is easy to say and had a lot of good ideas behind it. When people are starving and dying, it usually will turn public opinion against you, especially if you're an elected official who's seen as not doing anything. He also wanted to put money in the hands of banks and businesses through the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, believed in trickle-down economics, where they would use government aid to increase production and employment. However, bankers and businesses do not increase lending and employment. They just keep most of the money, and this public views Hoover as out of touch and unwilling to help them in time of need, which is going to make him very, very unpopular, as you can see from this political cartoon. Urban versus rural reality of the Great Depression. With no jobs, savings gone, citizens sell any asset to keep the rent and mortgage paid, and to keep their pantry full. Acid is useful, valuable property, can be used to meet debts. Cars, radios, washing machines. Usually these are bigger things that you can sell. In cities, Hoovervilles spring up in public land or vacant lots across the U.S., named after the esteemed president. Tents and shacks. Newspapers are going to be called Hoover blankets. Pant pockets turned inside out. Hoover flags. Why did they use a Hoover reference? What is the reasoning behind that? I'll let you think about that for a while. Some examples of some of the Hoover towns or Hoovervilles. The rural depression experience. Low crop prices, high debt forces farmers to sell their land. Just when you think that things can't get any worse, you have a severe drought. One of the worst droughts in American history affects the Midwest. And the Dust Bowl is what is going to be called. These huge dust storms are going to come in and wipe out farms, wipe out crops growing, force families to move out of the Midwest. Typically, they're going to head even further west into California, Oregon, or Washington, where any form of job could be found. The famous John Steinbeck novel, The Grapes of Wrath, takes place with these Okies leaving the Midwest to settle out in California. So you're going to see a significant shift in population from the middle of the country to more urbanized states along the coast. All of this leads into the election of 1932. Eager for a change, Democrat and the governor of New York, Franklin D. Roosevelt, a Democrat, wins the presidency in a landslide. 472 electoral votes to 59, one of the most lopsided victories for the President of the United States in history. He's going to run on the platform of what he's going to call his New Deal, which is going to be a bunch of economic changes to kickstart the American economy and get people back to work. He brings energy, excitement, enthusiasm, like his cousin Teddy did, 20 years before this. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, he is remembered for saying during his inauguration address in 1932. Very passionate guy, believed in what he was doing, and tried to help out the little people along the way. It's going to endear him to a lot of the public. So basically, the big precepts of the New Deal: get people back to work. Created federal agencies to create jobs for people who had none. Very liberal approach. Government is to be actively involved here. This is what we would call or know as big government. Results: unemployment 25% in 1933, shrunk to 15% in 1937, down to 2% in 1945. Now it usually hovers from somewhere to 7, 8, 9, maybe 10%, depending on if things are good or things are not so good in the economy. The New Deal and World War II, that can't be understated, helped to bring about an end to the worst economic disaster in world history. By the end of World War II, the U.S. once again became the top economic power in the world. Some of the New Deal programs, and they are a bunch, and they all have weird acronym names. These are some of the more important ones, and the ones that we're going to know for the test. The FDIC, or the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, insures bank deposits back then up to $100,000. Now it is up to $250,000. This one is still around. Another one that's still around, the Social Security Act, the SSA, provides financial assistance to the elderly, handicapped, paid for by the employer and employee. Whenever you get a job, you will see that a little percentage is taken out for Social Security. That will come back to you one day, hopefully. Public Works Administration, the PWA, created large public works projects, infrastructure, building highways, building schools, office buildings, putting up telephone poles, electric, all those kind of things. The TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, built dams for hydroelectric power throughout the rural South. And then the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, employed unskilled laborers in rural areas. All right, another mini quiz. You can also take this one through the online test link on RenWeb, just like the other ones. You'll be able to take all of them there. If you want to, you can print out this page. You can print out the little document that is attached in the lesson plan, the supporting document portion of RenWeb. You just have to complete it, answer the questions. Make sure you submit it to me so it can be graded. And I appreciate you guys, and we'll be back with another one of these videos here pretty soon. Congrats on reaching the end of Unit 10.